I dropped my pen. No. There we go. There's someone is doing something next door, I think, because I keep hearing knocking and like shuffling and moving things around, and I don't think it's knocking on my door, because the only person who would come knocking on my door is my co-writer, but my co-writer specifically said he didn't want to hang out today, so it can't be him. Been forcing myself into overdrive to like get pages done and like work on a really big forget-me-not. I don't know if the word goal or project is the right word, but working on something really big for forget-me-not. Working on a few really big things for forget-me-not, actually. There's Astral Miria. There's a animation that I haven't been able to touch in a really long time, unfortunately, but I'll have the opportunity to coming up soon. And another thing that I don't want to talk about just yet. Ooh, ominous. There's a few things forget-me-not related going on. I started coding a game during lockdown that I haven't been able to touch since I went back to work as well, so that's on the back burner. And then of course there's, the day job, trying to run the social media stuff, and like getting the pre-orders for Forget-Me-Not all set and ready, There's just been a lot, which is why I'm really looking forward to the couple of months off that I want to take once Forget-Me-Not Astral Miria is done. Although, to be honest, this page that I'm working on right now, this is page 50 in Forget-Me-Not Astral Miria. And Astral Miria is going to be probably close to 300 pages, so I'm not even like a sixth of the way through. So it'll be a long time before I can have that break, But yeah, no, for a long time, right, I've been thinking about, ever since I was a kid, maybe since I was 13 or something, I've always thought about achieving things on my own in terms of my comics and my animations and my videos and stuff like that. But for a while now I've been thinking about just hiring someone to help me get through all of it so I can actually have time to rest. What was I saying? Yeah, no, for a really long time I had the mentality that I could do these kinds of things like what I'm already doing now on my own and be fine. But the more stuff I have on my plate and the more things that happen, the more I'm like, you know what, it would be beneficial to have someone at least maybe I don't know, edit the stream videos, or have someone, help sort through the paperwork. Obviously not do the paperwork for me, but help sort through the paperwork that I'm going through right now. Or someone to help manage stuff while I'm doing other things, because then I would actually have more time to fucking relax. But also at the same time, one, I don't have the money to pay someone like that, so I haven't even bothered looking yet. And two, even when I'm relaxing, I kind of want to do something productive, so it's as long as I'm doing something productive that feels relaxing, then technically it's relaxation, when I know that's not how it works. I know that's not how it works. I literally just need a nothing day. But yeah, no, I was watching an art streamer the other day, and she made a very valid point where, we are in a position, she is at the moment, because I'm not turning enough of a profit to do this yet, but she is in a position where she could she does make her own hours, and she could take more time to relax and, be with herself and stuff, but it's usually the people who can make their own hours that work the hardest, if that makes sense, the artists and stuff. Because what a lot of people don't understand about jobs in general is that when you have a 9-to-5, unless you're a manager or you're literally running the business, then once your time or once your shift is over, you can just clock out, go home and do what you want. But if you're working from home, if you're a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer or an artist, or maybe you're a combination of the three or whatever, you can't just clock off, if you know what I mean. You can't just like clock off, go home and not worry about it if you're the one running the business, or if you're like I was saying, a Twitch streamer, YouTube commentator, like artist, all three, like you run a business or something. You literally like, they paint it as like it's all like fluffy rainbows and shit, where it's like, oh, you can make your own hours and like you don't have to work all that much and blah 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 blah. But like, even though you have that choice, it's actually quite rare, at least from what I've seen, to see a person doing that kind of work that doesn't like overwork it, if that makes sense. Like, I've seen commentators and artists and Twitch streamers and stuff that are like putting in 80 hours a week, because if they're not streaming or doing artwork or making YouTube videos or whatever they're doing, then they're doing social media PR. Then they're talking to other people about what the next steps are for the channel. They're talking about like, you know, profit margins and stuff, and like new projects, and, you know, writing brand deals and stuff like that. And, you know, it's like, and filling out paperwork and like doing your taxes and everything. So like, you literally, you can't just clock off like everyone says you can. You can't just clock off and like not worry about it and just have this like passive income and do whatever you want all day. Like, it's the people who work independently. Actually, I should do this drawing first. I'll make this one bigger. We'll make it like 1. Yeah. It's usually the people who do those professions that are the ones that overwork and who are the most victim to crunch culture and stuff like that, you know? And I feel like we need to stop glorifying that kind of work. Just because, yeah, like I said before, a lot of people have the mentality that once you do social media for a living, or once you get your independent artwork to give you, like, provide a living and stuff like that, a lot of people think that it's just passive income and you don't have to work as hard as everyone else, when in reality, usually you're working much harder than everyone else, you know what I mean? Yeah, I feel like we need to stop glorifying specifically crunch culture or hustle culture, because like, being able to work hard and putting in extra hours at work and stuff like that tends to be pretty glorified, and like, people tend to see it as a good thing when you sacrifice your free time and all that to like quote unquote commit to the grind, or whatever it is they say. Yeah, like, there's nothing, look, I'm not saying that hustle is like, there's anything inherently wrong with wanting like a side hustle or wanting to, like, you know, that kind of stuff, but hustle culture in general is can get very toxic very quickly, because then you have people who are sacrificing their free time, sacrificing time that they would spend with their families, sacrificing like time that they would spend to look after themselves properly, or like sometimes even clean their own house. I've been victim to that. But like, they neglect literally everything else in their life because they're committing to the hustle, and like, they want to make it big. They want the big bucks, like the, you know, the chunky money, you know what I mean? And that side of hustle culture is inherently unhealthy and needs to be stopped immediately. Yeah, that's something that I feel like my family specifically struggled with. I knew that I wanted to do animation and stuff since I was 11, so for quite a few years now. My brother is like 14, and when he was like 12, he realized he was really, really into tech, and he wants to, you know, play around with hardware and software and, you know, all the really cool, like, innovative shit. Like, pretty sure he was working on his own facial recognition system from scratch. And again, he's 14. My sister had a really solid direction, and now, because she's HSC, She's kind of questioning the direction she wanted to go, which is perfectly normal for a 17-year-old, mind you. And the only one who didn't really know what they wanted to do was my youngest brother. My youngest brother, I think, is only like 12 now. And since he could decide what he wanted to do in like his day-to-day life by himself, he's been getting ostracized and basically, it sounds harsh when I put it like this, but this is the only way I can say it, basically attacked by my family, specifically my dad, about how he's not doing anything productive, he doesn't have any direction in life and blah blah blah. And this is a kid who hasn't even started high school yet. High school is next year for my brother, and he's been going through that for years of like just being blasted because what he's doing is not productive. What he's doing is not basically just productive. He would sit down, he would play video games, like I would argue most normal children would. Sit down, play video games, talk to his friends, stuff like that. And I will agree, he did do it to a kind of unhealthy degree. But it wasn't the fact that it was an unhealthy degree that my dad would, argue with. It was the fact that it wasn't productive that my dad would argue with. And I feel like when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, you shouldn't have to worry about being productive. That's not a thing that a child should have to worry about, because they're a fucking child. So my brother is the odd one out in terms of my family, because he wasn't productive straight out of the fucking womb. And he didn't have a clear direction in what he wants to do and where he wants to go. But in terms of, society in general, he's just a normal fucking kid. If we look at society as a whole, me and my other 2 siblings would be the outliers, and my youngest, Alvarez, would be the normal one, because he's just being a fucking kid. Yeah, it is kind of horrible. It is. And I've been conditioned to a point where if I want to sit down and relax, I can't. Because in the back of my brain, it's like, you could be being productive right now, you could be doing this, you could be doing that, there's so much more you could be doing, but instead you're doing nothing. And that comes from years and years and years of being told that I was not productive, being told that I was lazy, being told that I wasn't doing anything good with my life. And you know what the really, really tragic part is? My parents would say that to me while I was working on Forget-Me-Not Aconite, the first book. I would be in my room and I would be writing the script, thumbnailing the pages, writing the pages, making Instagram and Twitter posts, trying to build up some kind of audience so that I could release the book. And I was being told that I was lazy and unproductive and that I wasn't doing anything of a decent value. And yeah, sure, maybe it would have hit different if I was actually being lazy and unproductive, but I was working really, really hard on that book, and basically it didn't it didn't resonate with my parents, they didn't realize or something, and they just decided to jump on the bandwagon that I was quote unquote lazy. And now I don't know how to rest. I don't know how to relax. I physically cannot actually sit down and do nothing and relax unless I am with my co-writer. Because my co-writer knows how to relax. He knows how to just switch off and enjoy a day for what it is and not do anything. And unless I'm with him and I'm around that energy, I cannot. I literally cannot. I have to be doing something. And that's not good. That's not good for a kid. That's not good for anyone, really. Look at her and her gay little face. Cute gay baby. But yeah, going back a little bit, my brother, the one that is literally just being a child and playing video games and stuff, he decided that he wanted to be a YouTuber. So, and he's 13 now, I think, so, like, he actually can make YouTube content now. So, he has a YouTube channel, and I think he does, like, Minecraft videos or something. And I think it's nice that he's trying to turn something that he really enjoys into a hustle. But also it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because he couldn't just sit down and enjoy games. He had to. He was low-key forced into trying to turn it into something he could make money off of because he wasn't allowed to just enjoy playing the game for the sake of playing the game. And I know what that feels like because when I'm not streaming, like, because I do my J job and I do Forget Me Not Ashamiria and I do all my side projects and I do my coding for my own game, when I'm not streaming, I just don't play games because I don't have the time for them because I'm just overpiling myself in the hustle. And Twitch streaming, like streaming the video games was supposed to be my unwind. And now it's become a hustle in and of itself. And it's like, is nothing sacred? Can I not have a hobby without, like, trying to turn it into a hustle? And the answer is no, because my parents. But I feel really bad for my brother, because again, he's like 13, and he wasn't allowed to just enjoy playing video games for the sake of playing video games. It was, hey, if you're gonna sit and play games all day, then do something productive with it, or stop. And that was really upsetting to me, because the older I get, the more I see the holes in the way my parents, parent. And I get that the intention is there. I get that the intention is good, and that they want us to be able to achieve something. I get that. I understand that. But intention and execution are different. Just because your intention is good doesn't mean that your execution will be interpreted as good. You get what I mean? I feel like, I get it. I don't want to go too far into, like, my parents' personal history or anything in order to justify where they're coming from, because I shouldn't have to justify where they're coming from. But also, the whole you need to do something with your life and, like, you know, get yourself together, I feel like if that's a conversation you're going to have, that's a conversation you have with someone in, like, their mid-20s or, like, early 30s who still hasn't figured out what direction they want to go, is still living with their parents, is, you know, this, that, and the other, like, doesn't have any direction or any of those things. That's the time you have a conversation like that with someone. Not a fucking 8-year-old kid who just, like, whose main priority in their brain is to have fun and to play around. It's just like, yeah, well, see, that's what I mean. Like, you don't have to have all of those traits, you know what I mean? If you're gonna have a conversation with someone where it's like, hey, you need to get your shit together, you need to get your life together, then you can't just have a conversation like that with someone who still lives with their parents. Because I know people who still live with their parents. One of my family friends is like 4 years older than me, and still lives with her parents, but she's getting married. She has a child. She knows what she wants to do for a job, you know? Like, in most aspects of her life, she does have her life together. She's just trying to figure out how to get there, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't have that conversation with her because, again, she lives with her parents, but she's got most other things figured out. And I wouldn't have that conversation with someone like my other friend who has moved out of his parents' house, you know, is independent for the most part, but doesn't know what direction they want their life to go. He has a degree, but he's struggling to figure out how he wants to use that degree, you know? I wouldn't have that conversation with him either because, like, yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's he knows enough of what he's doing to be able to sustain himself and live on his own, if that makes sense. And he's still like making an active contribution to become his own person, you know what I mean? That kind of conversation where it's like, you need to get your shit together, you need to do this, you need to do that, is for a very specific kind of person, in my opinion. That conversation is reserved for someone who, again, mid to late 20s or like in their 30s, who still lives with their parents, who doesn't know what they want to do with their life, doesn't want to figure out what they're doing with their life, and would just rather, live comfortably off their parents, essentially, or off of like other family members, or taking advantage of a friend and using their friend to like help sustain them, you know what I mean? That's when you have the whole conversation of, you need to get your shit together. Or you have it with someone who like obviously has very toxic traits, and refuses to acknowledge them and refuses to change them on their own. Again, not the kind of conversation you'd have with a fucking 8-year-old. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Most of the time, trying is enough. And as long as someone is trying, I feel like it's unjustified to step them aside and have that kind of conversation, because they're already making an active effort, you know what I mean? But yeah, having those kinds of conversations with someone who is still really young, or someone who is already trying to figure themselves out and is kind of struggling, is not a good thing. And even if the intention is good, that can end up being quite damaging to the person you're having that conversation with. And I would know. Oh God, I've seen it firsthand, I've experienced it firsthand. That kind of stuff is not good. I'm of the mentality that kids should be kids for as long as they can. Obviously, for everyone, there comes a point where they have to grow up and they have to start taking care of themselves and other people and stuff like that. But kids should be allowed to be kids, you know? They shouldn't have to figure out their lives way too soon. They shouldn't have to be in a position where they're looking after their siblings all the time. And that's something that I've seen firsthand too, because of my cousin. My cousin is basically a second mother to her siblings. The amount of time she has to put into taking care of them and watching them and helping them. It's, sometimes it feels like she didn't get the chance to be a kid. And I feel like if I brought that up to her, she would agree to a degree. She could try and argue it, because there were moments where she did actually get to be a kid, but yeah. And the really sad thing to me is that this cousin has been put off of having kids of her own. And I asked her, I was like, oh, why don't you want to be a mother? And her reason, almost word for word, was, well, I've basically been a mother my whole life. I've been looking after my siblings my whole life. I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking after more children, you know what I mean? And that was really sad for me to hear, because she is amazing with children, and if she wasn't forced into being a second mother to her siblings, maybe she would have wanted kids. And it's tragic to think about. No, I haven't spilt the tea today, I promise. I've stopped overfilling the cup so it hasn't spilled. My hands are also incredibly shaky when I walk. So even though the glass, not the glass, but like the cup wasn't full, because my hands are so shaky when I walk, I did almost spill it, even though it wasn't like, overflowing. But didn't spill it. Should be proud of me for achieving the bare minimum. I kind of want the poles to be the same width as the vertical poles, which means I think it has to be a bit thicker than that. But also I kind of like the idea of being slightly thinner. I don't know. I don't ever know what I want when I do this stuff. I have like a vague idea. I don't think I spoke about this. But I can't actually visualize things in full detail. I get like really blurry kind of I don't really know how to explain it, but I get kind of blurry visions in like my imagination hole where I have a vague idea of what I'm going for, but I can't picture the details. I can't picture the exacts. So even though I have a vague idea of what I'm after, 9 times out of 10 when I'm doing some kind of artwork, I'm just winging the details. Which I think contributes to why I don't get as fussy when it doesn't look the way I want, because the way I imagine it is already blurry enough. Like I have to fill in the blanks as I'm making the work, which I think is pretty neat, because it means that I don't go through that issue that a lot of artists go through. Well, I mean, I do, just not as much, not nearly as much. Go through that issue that a lot of artists go through where they're drawing something and it just doesn't look how they want it to look or how they imagine it to look, and so they get frustrated. I don't deal with that all that much because it's quite difficult for me to picture something that detailed to start off with. So that's fun. I don't know what made me bring that up. I think it was something to do with this fence. I really like this shot, this front shot of Zendaya. Even though her face looks not perfect, you can kind of see the concern, which, look, front angles are always something that I've like struggled with my style. You can even see on the reference sheet, I don't have a fully front on shot in the art style. It's 3/4 left to right and back, because they're almost always drawn in 3/4. It's actually kind of uncommon to see them from a front angle, which has been changing. I think in Forget Me Not Astral Miria, you see them from the front view a decent amount more times than you did in Forget Me Not Aconite, because I'm trying to figure out what a front view in my art style would actually look like. So I've been playing around and experimenting with it. I think Caden's front view looks pretty good for what it is. But other characters, like Zendaya's, I'm still working out. Even without the front view, generally speaking, Zendaya is probably one of the more difficult characters to draw. Not even at a specific angle, just in general. Because, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of her facial features are in proportion to each other. Which sounds like that would be the case for, like, characters in general. But, whoops, let me color these parts on a separate layer. How about that? I'm going to turn that off too so I can tell if they've been colored or not. It's like the difference is that there's a very specific angle for Zendaya's stuff. Like for Cadence, for example, yeah, he will pretty much always have 20 stubble lines on his face. He will always have his like sideburn that almost touches the corner of his face but never actually touches the corner of his face. And like little quirky things like that. But Zendaya's proportions are a bit more exact. Which means if I draw, like for example, her little sideburn tuft things, if I draw them even slightly out of proportion, then her whole face looks wrong. Which is unfortunate for me, but you know. So the gates are here. Let me make the brush a bit bigger before we do this. So the gates are like here. This is the front gate of Alma. This is the front. I'll put a little F in the corner. This is the front. Actually, what I'm gonna do, Alma is more of a like a round shape. So because there's a little back alley, not alley, but like little corner area here that's blocked off by like some buildings and a fence. And then there's more stuff back here. And then like these are all like buildings and stuff back here. These are all buildings. This area here would be like the housing. That's the housing area. Gonna make this smaller. This is by no regard the final map. This is literally just me trying to figure out what would be behind Zendaya in this shot, because there's a gazebo in the center of Alma. There's a gazebo like right here, except it wouldn't be that big. There's a gazebo like here with like a park, not a gazebo, but like this is like all bricked, and then there's like chairs and tables here, like a cute little picnic area type thing, just to keep Alma social. There's like some tables and like little sitting areas and stuff here. That's the center of Alma right there. I'm gonna make it smaller again because the chairs were almost as big as the housing. So there's the little like central like hall type area for Alma, and there's like it's a ring kind of thing, because what it is like all this area where the benches are, all this is grass, and then this in the center is like a tiny little paved circle. Don't ask me why I envision it like that, I just do. So there's the like center area of Alma, and then these are housing, and then like here, down here, maybe not this big, but down here is where they keep their food stock, which is where Zendaya is most of the time. I have a written description in the script. I just don't have access to the script right now, right this second. But that's the food stock area. I always envisioned Caden and Siobhan's, like, I'm gonna make this smaller again, because the front gate is like right at the bottom here, the front gate. I always pictured their residence being here, in relation to everything else in Alma, but that doesn't make sense because the rest of the housing is back here. All I wanted to know really is if you would see this little hub area from behind Zendaya. And you probably wouldn't. If I put Caden and Siobhan here in the actual housing units, then you might see the watchtowers that are at the gate. You might see like one of the watchtowers. I always picture it here, but at the same time, I don't think it can be there, because around here, like one of the closest units to the gate, is the doctor's area. And he's supposed to be this close, and then next to the doctor, if I'm remembering my written description correctly, like right here is their weaponry. I don't think you would see anything. These pages aren't, like, even though this is the quote-unquote final artwork, these aren't the final pages, because what I did with Aconite and what I plan to do with Astral Miria as well is, once I finish all of the pages, I'm gonna go back to the early pages and, like, do any edits and redraws that need to be done. So, like, even though these are the quote-unquote final pages, they're not. This is just the first version of the final pages. They're prone to change. So if this ends up not being if this does end up being a housing unit, I can just come back in, move the line work up, make it a add the balcony and stuff. I'm gonna make just to make work on the pages a lot more easier, I have to make several maps and several color palettes, and it'll be a lot of prep work, but I feel like in the end it'll be worth it, because then I won't be opening several different comic pages and potentially spoiling things just to get a color that I need. I should have realistically, I should have a planner to help me get through all this. And I used to do that. I used to be like I wouldn't write, okay, from 12 to 4:30 working on these pages, and then 5 to, I don't know, 7 doing this other thing. I wouldn't plan it that precisely. But what I would do is at the start of every week, I would go to a new page in my journal, and I'd be like, okay, this week I want to get this, this, and this done, and then if I have time as a bonus, I would also like to do this and this. So a bunch of quote-unquote mandatory stuff to do, and then a bunch of bonus stuff to do if I got the mandatory stuff out of the way. And I used to do it like that. And then I would at the end of every day, I'd be like, okay, well, I did this part of what I had to do, I did this part, and blah, blah, blah. And I would do it throughout the week. Because if I plan things too rigidly, to the hour kind of rigidly, I can't work properly like that. So, in terms of getting a bunch of different stuff done, I can't work like that. So I would just kind of give myself rough guidelines. And it kind of worked for a little while. It worked, actually, I'm not even going to say it kind of worked for a little while. It did work. But eventually I just kind of stopped, because then I would start adding more and more to the list of mandatory things. And eventually I didn't have a list of optionals. I just had one massive mandatory list. And it felt really not great when a week would come to an end and I hadn't done the complete list, and I would feel bad. So that's why I stopped, because I started getting too carried away and putting a lot more on myself than I should have. But it could probably help me manage all of the stuff that I have to do if I, manage it properly, I say a lot. I'm trying not to, but yeah. I feel like if I... Actually, no, that shadow wouldn't be in front of that tooth. That shadow would be behind that tooth. Yeah, I feel like I should probably try something like that again. Just to make what I'm trying to do a bit more manageable, Because I don't have... I have a co-writer, but I don't have a manager. I don't have, someone to help me with paperwork and deadlines and anything like that. Everything is on me right now, and I feel like because everything is on me right now, I should take more responsibility in actually managing things properly. And I try my best. I try my very best, and I feel like that can be said for most creatives out there that are trying to do their own stuff independently. But I don't know. I feel like I should be not taking more of a responsibility. I was gonna say taking it more seriously, but I am taking it already, pretty seriously. I think what I'm trying to say is that I want to feel more productive than I am, and writing it down and having a list or a checklist and being able to tick things off through the week might help me feel less stressed about things and more accomplished about things. The work that I do wouldn't change. The amount of work I'm doing probably wouldn't change either. I would still have a lot of work to do, but just that tiny additional thing of ticking off something on a list would probably reduce a lot of the stress surrounding what I'm doing. because then at all times, whenever I need, I can have a list of the things that I need to do in a week and then see what I've already done in a week. Whereas without the list, I don't really think about the stuff that I've already done. I'm just constantly focusing on the stuff that I need to do, which is very, very draining. But then at least that way I can see the progress that I've made during the week, and it's like, okay, I still have this, that, and the other to do, but I've already done, like, say for example, 3 things out of the 6 things on my list for this week. So, you know, I have something to feel good about. Maybe that's just me, but I think it would help. The problem is, all of the journals that I have now, I'm using for other things. So, like, I have one that's specifically for forget-me-not plots and writing ideas and taking inspiration from other things and, like, writing those inspirations down. I have one that's exactly the same thing, except instead of forget-me-not, it's for my video game project. I have one that's for, like writing scripts and keeping track of how many pages of forget-me-not I've done. Like, every time I finish a page, I write it down in that book, and then I write down the day that I did it and stuff like that, just to keep track of how many pages I'm doing, like, a week. I have one that's for ideas and taking inspiration, but, like, not for any specific story, just, like, in general. I have one that I was trying to revive Noble Blood in. If you guys remember Noble Blood, I have quite a few notes in there, and I do plan on, like, reviewing those ideas and using those ideas for something else entirely. So there's that. I have one that I did do the, like, bullet journal kind of stuff in, but that book is full now because I ended up using it for scripts and tracking the forget-me-not aconite pages and stuff. So, like, I have a lot of journals, but they are all being used for different things at the same time. So if I'm gonna do the whole, like, bullet journal, you need to do this in this week and stuff, I would need to buy yet another journal. Oh, so much paper, so many dead trees in my study, I could use this little like pirate book that I have. It's not really a book, it's more like a binder that came with a bunch of blank pages. But it's, like, not lined paper, it's sketch paper, and I feel like that makes it a whole lot less official, and I wouldn't take that as seriously. That, and I also started using it to draw references for zombies. Like I said, every book, every journal that I have in my room is being used for something already. So, oopsie doodle. Gonna have to go buy another one if I want to do that. I feel like it would be worth it, though. Maybe. I've been thinking, I wanted to wait until I had, like, a more permanent place to stay. Because I'm only renting at the moment, and I don't know if I'm gonna stay here or not. But because I have this study now, I kind of want to print out the character sheets that I have and, like, stick them on the wall. And then I also want to have, like, when I finally get to it, the map of Alma, the map of, like, all the locations that need a map at least. I'm not going to go back and draw maps for the aconite locations. And stuff like that, and just have them up on the walls of the study. I think that would be really nice, and add a bit more personality, because right now all that's in my study is my desk. Right now my computer, but my computer doesn't stay in here. I put the computer in the living room for the gaming streams. And, like, the accents that I've put on my desk. The actual study itself doesn't really have any decoration or anything like that. And I feel like printing off the character sheets, like printing off the maps and some concept art and just sticking it on the wall would be a really nice touch. Especially since in that case, if I need a character sheet to, like, remember how to draw something or, like, double check a certain angle or anything, then instead of looking for the digital copy of the character sheet to open and look up, I can literally just rotate my chair and look at the wall and, like, see the character sheet there and be like, so it's drawn like this, and, like, keep going. That way the sheets are always in front of me. I think that would be really, really nice. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining me for the art streams. if you've been here for a while, then you know the drill. But if you don't know, stay warm, stay cozy, stay toasty. If you sneeze during the stream at all, then bless you. And yeah, I'll see you either on Monday or on Thursday for more Outlast, or maybe you're only here for the art streams, in which case I'll see you next Sunday. Goodbye, everybody.